As the U.S. departs, the UN reports that civilian casualties are at a record high, up nearly 50% over the same 6-month period a year ago. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the Taliban's grip on the country continues to grow. They now control about half of Afghanistan's district centers. Let's take a look at this map. The bright red areas on these maps show just how much territory the Taliban has taken. That's just 3 months. Over the past week, the U.S. has supported the Afghan army with airstrikes, but it remains unclear how much longer that support will last. So as the situation on the ground in Afghanistan continues to get worse, and with the U.S. and NATO withdrawal now more than 95% complete, what will happen to the thousands of U.S. allies in a country that is desperately looking for a way out? Joining us now, Richard Engel, NBC chief foreign correspondent, who is with me in person. Richard, you are the first correspondent I've been in person with, actually, in a year and a half. So welcome, and thank you for your great reporting.
It's a great honor. I'm surprised. I didn't know that I was the only one here.
You didn't know it was such a special thing.
I'm not in New York very often. I came in from Afghanistan, and I'm looking around, and there's nobody home.
Yeah, well, we're getting back to normal, we hope.
Good.
Afghanistan is not. And your reporting on Afghanistan is actually tonally very different from what the Biden administration is saying is going on. They're saying there's a very well-trained military, a very strong military, and an air force. We'll back them up a little bit, but they can handle the Taliban. Everybody on the ground is saying that doesn't look like that's how it's going to go.
Well, look at the map you just showed, and look at the quotes you just put on the screen. Many cities are surrounded. The Taliban could probably take most of Afghanistan if it wanted to.
Wow.
If the U.S. Pulled back and stopped these last airstrikes that are really it's carrying out just to kind of keep the door open while the last bit of the exit happens, the Taliban could probably take a lot of cities. It seems like they've been holding off. They've surrounded a lot of the major capital areas or major urban centers, and they've set themselves up in a position to take over militarily. There's a negotiated process going on in Doha, Qatar. Negotiators, Taliban representatives I've spoken to, don't put a lot of faith in that. Even Qatari officials don't put a lot of faith in that. They think the Taliban are just wasting time, allowing this process to go on. And in theory, what they're negotiating about is like a future power sharing agreement in which the Afghan government, which the U.S. has been backing up until now, negotiates with the Taliban and says, OK, we'll give you half the government. Yeah. We'll give you 40%. We'll give you 60%. And the Taliban is saying, OK, well, let's just keep talking. Let's just keep talking. And they've set up their troops in a position around all the cities, around Kabul. So that as soon as the last of the American troops leave, they can take those cities, and then that process will be meaningless. Why would they give away anything now in negotiations when they're poised to take
those kinds of power sharing agreements have not worked very well in the Middle East. In fact, we saw it, one of them fail in Tunisia just today.
And what's happening about the translators is absolutely tragic. And it was avoidable, frankly. I mean, OK, it's America's longest war, 20 years. So you'd think you would have had time to plan for an exit like this. And this deal to pull out was signed by President Trump. So it's been a long time that they've had to plan for this day. And the U.S. military does plan very well.
Yeah.
They were able to get out their troops safely so far. They've been able to get out a lot of equipment, a lot of weapons. I don't know why they didn't put any thought into this. And there are still thousands and thousands of people there who can't come into Kabul and send in their forms and get processed. And they're going to die. They're going to die unless something happens.
You know, we fully understand the argument that Joe Biden has made about getting out of Afghanistan, America's longest war, hoping that there'll be an outcome that we keep on hoping for, sending another generation of soldiers in there. That makes a lot of sense. But on the other side, what's the danger of Afghanistan falling?
Well, many. Aside from the sort of horrible outcome for the translators and all the people who work for us, which is a moral failing, it also sends a message to the rest of the world. Who's going to work with us again if this is what you do to the people who signed contracts, got paid, risked their lives, went on missions, and then you leave them to die? So who's going to work with us in the past? But then Afghanistan itself, the Taliban are using this as an enormous rallying cry. And already there are about 22 different extremist groups that operate in the region. They're already coming to join the party. They want to see this Taliban victory. The Taliban is going to be able to say for generations to come that it pushed out the United States. It did what ISIS couldn't do. It did what al-Qaeda couldn't do. It'll become the champion of extremist groups. And that does a lot of damage. It encourages the extremists It could potentially destabilize Pakistan. And that's an interesting dynamic here because Pakistan played a big role in supporting the Taliban.
Yep.
Now Pakistan is worried about spillover. It is worried that it encouraged this fire and that the fire could jump over the border and engulf Pakistan as well. Pakistan is a major, massive country, 200 million people, nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
So destabilizing Pakistan, allowing Afghanistan to become this symbol, or the Taliban to become this symbol of extremist defiance and victory, and then the sort of moral baseness of leaving behind the translators. But that might, there's still a little bit of time, but the window is closing for them.